Ever get that feeling, like you're only hearing one side of the story? Like there's a whole other plot going on behind the scenes that we don't see. Well, that's kind of what we're looking at today. This whole RCMP investigation into Premier Ford's government and that Greenbelt land swap controversy. It's been a year now, and things are getting kind interesting, to say the least. Now, I know not everyone's glued to this whole political drama, so quick recap. The Greenbelt, it's like this huge chunk of protected land, 2 million acres around the greater Toronto area, right? Super important for the environment, for farms, all that. But then Ford's government decides, hey, let's open some of it up for development. Yeah. And people are like, hold on a minute, what's going on here? Accusations start flying about, favoring certain developers. So that's where the RCMP comes in. And they're not messing around. They've called in their O Division's Sensitive and International Investigations Unit. We're talking like the big guns here, the team that usually handles political crimes and corruption. So it's serious. And they've already interviewed, get this, at least 8 current and former top people in Ford's office.
Yeah. And the really interesting thing is what they're asking these people. It's all about, where did the order to pull these lands out of the Greenbelt come from?
So they're trying to trace it back to the source.
Exactly. Like, who gave the actual order? Was it a decision made by, say, just the minister? Or did it go higher? Was there any pressure from developers? That's what they're trying to figure out.
So it's not just about who flipped the switch, but who told them to flip it in the first place.
Precisely.
Which puts the Premier's office right in the hot seat. Not just the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, who a lot of folks thought would be the ones in trouble.
And the timing of this whole thing is really interesting, right? Because Ford might call an early election spring 2025. So imagine, the RCMP comes out with some big report just weeks before people are supposed to vote.
Talk about a bombshell.
It could totally change everything, how people see things, even who wins.
That's a lot of pressure. And especially since we know the RCMP is already looking at some specific people. Steve Clark, the former municipal affairs minister, and Ryan Amato, his former chief of staff. Amato's name keeps coming up, doesn't it? He was the one the Auditor General and the Integrity Commissioner both said was a key figure in choosing which Greenbelt lands to open up.
Right, and those reports, especially the Auditor General's, those are like a roadmap for the RCMP now. For example, the Auditor General found that Amato personally chose 14 out of the 15 pieces of land that got taken out of the Greenbelt.
Wow. Okay, so we've got possible political games at the highest level, an election clock ticking away, and the RCMP is zeroing in on some key players. But wait, it gets even better. Remember that 2020 trip to Las Vegas?
Oh yeah, that Vegas trip. Now that's a curious one.
Tell me about it. We're talking about Amin Massoudi, a top advisor to Ford back then, Kaleed Rasheed, a former MPP, Shakir Rehmatullah, a developer with Greenbelt land, and Jae Truesdell, who ended up as Ford's housing advisor. And it's not like it was just a buddies weekend, Makes you wonder what they were talking about in those hotel rooms.
Well, the RCMP seems to think those conversations were pretty important, and it's not hard to see why. I mean, think about it. Potential conflicts of interest, maybe some promises made, even just the appearance of something shady can be really bad in a case like this.
And let's not forget, Kaleed Rasheed, who was on that trip, had to step down from his position after giving, we'll say, inaccurate information about what happened there. Makes you wonder what else might come out as the RCMP digs deeper, doesn't it?
It's almost like, trying to solve a puzzle, but half the pieces are missing and the ones you do have don't quite fit. You know what I mean?
And just when you think it can't get any weirder, you've got this joint investigation by the Toronto Star and the Narwhal. They found something pretty wild, I gotta say.
Yeah, no kidding. They found that a big chunk of the land that ended up getting opened up, the developers, they had already bought it before it was even announced.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously. So how'd they know which pieces to buy unless someone tipped them off? That's what the RCMP is trying to find out.
It's like they had a cheat sheet or something.
Exactly. And if the RCMP can actually prove that there was insider trading going on, some kind of quid pro quo.
Ooh, that'd be huge.
Huge.
This isn't just about politicians playing games, though, is it? We're talking about the Greenbelt. Millions of acres of protected land. It's got farms that feed a lot of Ontario, forests that keep our air and water clean, not to mention all the wildlife that lives there.
It's a massive part of the ecosystem, and what happens to it affects everything else. We're not just talking about who's up and who's down in politics. We're talking about the environment, the economy, the future of the entire province.
Exactly. And those consequences are affecting people right now. Think about the folks who live and work in the Greenbelt. Their jobs, their communities, their whole way of life. It's all up in the air.
it really makes you think about how those decisions made behind closed doors, they have real consequences for real people, you know?
For sure. And honestly, this whole thing, it just makes people trust the system less.
Hmm.
It's hard to have faith when stuff like this happens.
Transparency is so important. When you lose that, the whole thing starts to fall apart.
Speaking of transparency, what do you make of how the RCMP's handled things so far? Think they'll get to the bottom of it?
Well, they've been thorough so far. Gonna give them that. Interviewing all the major players, looking through tons of documents, following the money. They seem pretty serious about getting answers.
But we know these things can drag on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Years sometimes. What's that mean for Premier Ford, especially with an election maybe happening soon? Yeah, it's a long game, isn't it?
Absolutely. And for Ford, it's a risky one. If the RCMP finds something, actual proof that something shady went down, it could be really bad for him politically.
Hard to come back from that.
Really hard. But even if they don't find that smoking gun, just having the investigation hanging over him, all those questions, that could be enough to make people think twice.
Makes you wonder what's going through his head, eh?
I'm sure he's not sleeping too well these days.
So what's next? What should we be watching for in the next few months, you think?
Well, for me, it's all about who they talk to next. The RCMP, I mean. Are they getting closer to Ford himself, to his inner circle?
Getting warmer, as they say.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the question of charges. If they decide to actually charge someone, that changes everything.
Sends a message, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. It'd be a clear sign that no one's above the law, even the premier, and it could set a precedent for future cases like this.
So, lots of unknowns still. But one thing's for sure. This Greenbelt story, it's not going away anytime soon. We've got it all here, don't we? Power, money, maybe even some backstabbing. Like something you'd see on TV.
Stranger than fiction sometimes.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into this whole RCMP investigation and what it means for the Greenbelt. But like we said, this story's still unfolding, and we'll be back to break it all down with you as it develops. Until then, stay informed and don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Because at the end of the day, this is about all of us.